Our guest this episode is Kevin Finke, a culture, leadership, and experience consultant. He's also a human centered designer and a contagious speaker and facilitator, which you'll soon hear. Kevin has a strong background in creating employee experiences to attract top talent. He is an expert in diversity and inclusion and has worked with many companies to develop and implement inclusive leadership frameworks and training programs. He's also written and spoken extensively on the topic. Here to share his experience and insights on creating a more inclusive workplace, please welcome to the podcast, Kevin Finke. Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's so wonderful to be here, and I'm so excited to be in conversation with you today. So let's hit the ground.
Yeah, and maybe we'll use the pre-intro.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I will leave it up to our editor, but right away we hit it off talking about pronunciation of names and how that's important to people to recognize who we really are, and I think that's not a bad place to start, considering what you do, with companies as a consultant. Do you want to just I did the intro, but it's all very intro-y. In simple, plain language, how do you describe what you do with companies?
Well, I think we all have to start with why. If we learned anything from Mr. Simon Sinek, it's that, purpose matters. And so our purpose as a company is to ignite a contagious curiosity that powers betterness. And the way that we power betterness is through what we do, which is human-centered design. We're problem solvers, creative problem solvers. And I've been that my entire life, not just my entire career, but my entire life. I've been a creative problem solver. So, and what's interesting, when we were talking about who your audience is, the first 20, 25 years of my career, I was a marketer. I was on the agency side, building a creative kind of brand for myself and helping, brands creatively reach out to their consumer, their customer franchise and build their consumer and customer franchises. But when I started my company, I was having a love affair with culture. I had come from a really successful creative boutique that kind of started my love affair with culture because it's for two reasons. One, I was the only non-Latino on a Latino management team of a multicultural agency that was helping really big brands like Coca-Cola and Unilever, Kraft Foods, these really large global multinational brands reach out to American Latinos. And so I started to study culture, like who are we culturally? It's when I started to get really curious about my own culture, like what's it mean to be German? Like where do I come from? Like who are those people? Like why did I do the things I did when I was growing up? So I was having this love affair with culture, but we were also successful and we were growing like exponentially every year over year for about 4 or 5, 6 years continually. And we had to build our own internal culture. And that's where I found out that I was a learning and development guy. I was an onboarding guy. I loved training. I loved teaching, instructing, facilitating. And so that also was something about culture. And so now, when I started this design company, I leaned less on the consumer franchise work and I leaned more on that internal culture work. And I had had such a bad experience at work in a series of bad experiences. And so I was like, work should not be hard. It's our biggest activity as humans, on the planet. And why can't we design work so that it's more fun, it's more enjoyable, it's more purposeful, more meaningful, like it's all full of positive emotions. A lot of times I had experienced growing up in the rural Midwest in the United States, I had experienced people coming home to the table and just griping about their workplaces and especially the people they reported to, on many regards, And so it was like almost, and because I was German and had that in my background and from farming, people were like, work is hard work, work should be hard. So, that's what we do. We literally help clients design better workplaces by redesigning employee experiences like recruitment, onboarding, learning and development, leadership development, performance management, all the stuff we have to do as workers. So those experiences, but because human-centered design is such a agnostic. It doesn't matter what it's solving. Like that process can be used for anything. And so we also help them set culture strategy, even sometimes organizational strategy, company business strategy using human-centered design. And so I'm just having fun every day, just solving all sorts of problems, really about, helping people create better workplaces.
Yeah, you could be more enthusiastic about it, really.
Sorry.
But
People think I'm crazy sometimes. They're like, I don't understand. You're crazy. Like to even
they're
like, isn't
like,
that hard work?
yeah, yeah. Well, but I don't know. But if you're passionate about something, then it just comes naturally, right? So,
Yeah.
um, you know, can you? Because there was a lot of content there. I'm
Hmm.
not,
I
but
through a
could
lot
you
at
just
you, Anders.
go? Yeah,
Sorry.
could you? And for me, it was like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that.
Hmm.
To keep track of them in my head because I wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit more. And
Go
can we
for it.
just rewind back to your company experience, Willow, the purpose?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was just the wording of it was just so. Can you say it again for us, and then
Sure.
pause, and we'll
So
just.
when we do purpose workshops, a lot of our work, especially in that strategic space, is we're helping companies define who they are. And they're not
Yeah,
just defining their company, they're literally defining the culture of people. Like when, we all belong to multiple cultures, multiple groups of people. And at some level, I believe, and our work has shown that every culture, regardless of a work culture or not, has a core story. It has purpose, it has beliefs and values, it has norms and behaviors, it has common systems and practices, it has common language and artifacts. Like those things are true for all cultures. So, the purpose we say is the deepest held belief that any culture has of itself. And the reason that's true for humans is that the deepest held belief, like that is the deepest question we ask of ourselves as humans. Why am I here?
mm,
Like, what's my purpose? Like, why am I
yeah,
here? What
yeah,
does it mean to be human? And what does it mean to be me as a
right,
human? Like that's a very deep questions. And organizations are just collectives of humans. They have to ask themselves the same question. So you have to, when you define your purpose, it's like, why do we exist? We're not here to make money. Every company makes money, every business or should, and even nonprofits make money, right? Like it's not here, I'm not here to make money. It's here, like, what is your general contribution to the world? We ignite a contagious curiosity. That's what we do. Everything we do, the way that we work together, the way we work with our clients, the work that we create, if curiosity is not in the midst of all of that, if we're not, especially with our clients, getting them more curious, getting them
yeah,
excited about changing something, then we're failing on our contribution. The reason we do that is to power betterness. Everything, nothing's perfect because we're all humans and humans only create imperfect things. We can continue to iterate, to continually improve, to do all those things we need to do as companies to stay relevant. So every purpose has a contribution and an impact. Ours is to ignite a contagious curiosity that powers betterness.
whew, that's impressive. Impressive in a way that I mean, you know why you're here. You know your
Mhm.
purpose. And what would, and when I say your, I mean anyone listening, what would your company be like if your employees knew the company purpose with that level of, contagious excitement?
And we believe that not only should they understand your purpose, they should understand in their role how they're contributing to that contribution impact. And more importantly, if you want them to stay, align their purpose with yours. Let them
Yeah.
live their story out inside your story, but they have to be aligned, not only purpose, like, can I live my purpose with a company that has this purpose? Can I live my values with a company that has these values? I find myself, and I found myself in work in values conflict. I
Mm,
believe that work should be this way, or I believe that as a culture we should be this way, but we are anything but that. And that frustrates me. When I personally, as a professional, it has frustrated me and forced me to leave companies when I'm not in alignment with whatever it is they're doing. And I can tell
mhm.
you through our employee engagement and experience work, what we've learned, especially, and this is true for all workers across all function types that we've been able to find across all kinds of sectors. It doesn't matter, who they are, what they do, but they are searching for a place to go to that they can do good work. They want to do good. They want to do good work. They want to do meaningful work. They want to do purposeful work. They want to take care of their families and themselves. They want to grow. They want to develop. That's what humanity is, right? So how do we create the conditions as leaders? how do we can create the conditions that any person can walk in and have a fair, inclusive experience, feel a sense of belonging there, and feel like they can get better and help the organization get better, that they can reach their goals and help the organization reach their goals. Now, it might sound utopian, but it can happen, and it's a constant journey. But like that's the state that we're trying to always design for inside companies is how can we unleash that humanity inside a company through human-centered design? How can we unleash that so
Yeah.
that you can achieve your goals and your vision as companies? That's what we're
And,
doing.
and, and I think the design, the word design is very key in that it's on
Hmm.
purpose, not by default or by accident,
Yeah,
right? You get companies that
yeah,
have amazing culture and people love it, but sometimes that just is like worked out well for them, right? And that's part
yeah.
of why we hear about them and why they're successful. Now, when you were talking about aligning values, Kevin, um,
Hmm.
that's probably, I'm going to imagine, something that's brought into the hiring process so that you see that fit, you see that alignment.
Yeah,
Um, what does that kind of look like? If you kind of paint that picture a little bit, just to kind of give people an idea,
yeah,
because I think when I think about hiring process that I've seen in different companies, sometimes it's kind of like, hey, this is what we're about. Do you fit? And they kind of like
yeah,
almost trying to force you into it, because they want to hire, right? They want
yeah.
to fill the role. Can you walk us through that?
Well, one, you have to have a set of values. If you are interviewing with a company and they don't have values, I usually say turn around and walk out. Like
Yeah.
if they haven't written it down, then that means they haven't embedded them, likely. And they have no way of creating accountability within the culture for people that live the values or choose not to live the values. And it's always a choice. That's all we do is make choices every day to live or not live. And that's so when we're working and you have to have a set of values. This is the how of the organization. The purpose is the why. Why do we exist? Well, if this is our purpose, then how do we go about? Well, this is how we go about it, is how we treat each other, how we treat our work, how we treat our customers. What are the behaviors and norms we want in the system? That's values, right? And then the what is all of our functions and our products and services and all that kind of stuff. So you have to have a defined how. Um, this has been a really big, the last 10, 15, 20 years. HR professionals, communications professionals, marketing professionals have really been on a values journey, finding ways to articulate the values, uncover them, articulate them, embed them. This is what they're doing in their programs and their practices. And one of the things when we do values, we talk about them being sticky. Like we want people to be able to remember them. So like they know these are the values. A lot of times when you're having tensions and friction in a company, a lot of that's because people are maybe adhered to different values. They're not valuing the same standards or norms. So that creates a lot of friction and tension. So just getting clear on it is the first thing. When it comes to recruitment, we like to support an recruitment team model, which means that, you identify the candidates that you want to bring into your company to interview, but you pick a group of 3, 4, 5 people, depending on the size of your company, and they are a team. And that means they get together. They're like, what's our purpose? Our purpose is to find a candidate for this role. Okay, great. What are our values? Those are our values of our company. We must honor those because we're role modeling them while we interview, right? Everything we say about the company, everything we show them is our values in action. So not just us and how we portray ourselves, what we talk about, whatever, but like that's important even in where we take them on a tour. They're seeing our values, they're seeing people collaborating, they're seeing our spaces, which bring our values, help us bring our values to life. They're seeing things like that. So you agree on the value, and then you say, okay, well, what is it here we're going to be here to do? And as a team, we're like, well, we each have a role. And so many groups will say, okay, one or two in this group, your role is functional. You need to know that this person knows their technology, they know their process, they know what it is you do, they know the laws and the risk around it, or whatever you're interviewing for. Like, can they do what it is you've asked them to do? Now, the other part of the team is the how. Well, they're not even talking about, are you proficient in Python to a software engineer? They're like saying, how do you like to work with other people?
Mhm.
What kind of leaders do you appreciate? What kind of process do you like to follow when you are designing software? Like, what kind of teams have you excelled in? Or what kind of teams haven't you? Talk to me about that and what you think the challenges were. Like, you're actually trying to understand who they are behaviorally, not functionally, but behaviorally. And so and then you get together as a team and you're like, here's what I heard, here's what I liked, here's what I not liked. They do this, and then there's a team conversation to come to a place of, well, the people that we feel not only fit the role functionally, but also behaviorally, this is our short list, or this is the person we want to hire. But it's a team concept. I believe in team interviewing.
So tell me, Kevin, I mean, you're passionate about this. It sounds like a lot of heavy lifting in terms of like
Mm.
moving cultures. Like, my goodness, you've got things, all these systems, all these things that need to be changed. What is it like when you go and work with a company to do this? Like, how long of a project is this? What does this look like?
Oh,
Because I feel like it's like, oh man, that sounds like it's like a ton of work. I mean, you're
yeah.
guiding them, but they still have to do it too.
Yeah, of course. There is no average project length, but I will tell you this. One of our philosophies is that we want to work ourselves out of work. We pitched
Yeah.
a piece of business in 2018. It's one of the biggest pieces of business we ever pitched. And we pitched against really large companies, large management consulting firms that we all
Mm,
know. But
yeah.
we were like a team of five, you know? But they came to us and they're like, we're having cultural issues. We want to kind of unite our disparate HR teams. It was a parent company that was coming to us that had several disparate businesses,
Units.
separate
Yeah.
operating companies, units. And they were like, but we think that we could do some shared services and shared experiences. And so we want a partner to help us do that work. And I think the many of the other larger consulting firms came in and said, we have a teams that can do that for you. And if I've seen one thing, when teams come to companies, especially from consulting firms, and they're the ones doing all the work and the thinking and all of that, I tend to see those be either less successful or it takes longer to implement or things like that. However, if you can come to a company and say, you have 60,000 employees, how can you not think that you have the intellect, the passion, the excitement, whatever, inside your own culture to solve your own problems? I'm going to help you. So what we do many times is we come in and we will set up either virtually and or physically. In this case, it was a physical human-centered design lab. We
Mm,
then train any of our clients we work with on human-centered design, the 5 actions, how we employ them, how they'll be employing them. And then we take them, whatever the challenges are. If they're giving us a challenge in the beginning, we come through and we go through our process. We do empathy work. The secret sauce of all design is empathy. This is why this is why I think our work is standing out in HR is that we are designers coming into the world of HR and we are empathizers. And if you want a customer, a consumer, or an employee to feel included, to feel valued, to feel seen, heard, recognized, use empathy. We all know that, that you have empathy when they're walking up to you on a trade show floor. You should be like, what's going on in their mind? What challenges do they have? What isn't happening to them, right? So like we start everything, any challenge we start is with empathy. And then we define the problems. We have a process for that. And then we actually ideate about what these people need and why they need it. We ideate in a very defined way. Many times clients will come in. This client, for instance, was like, we just started solutioning. And I'm like, oh, you solutioned in absence of empathy, in absence of defining real problems. You just were throwing things, oh, this works at Google. Let's try that here.
right.
Well, this is a different culture, right? So then we go through an ideation process, then we prototype, and we go through like low, medium, or what's called high fidelity prototyping. And high fidelity is like, if you're creating something in an employee experience, it's almost created. Like you've almost created whatever it is people are going to go through or whatever. And then we help them implement, and think about communications, marketing, branding, all that kind of stuff to actually get a people program or practice off the ground. So they're going through this process with us. But we start these labs either virtually because we have dispersed workforce and we get into an environment like Miro or Lucid is our favorite. Actually, Lucid is what we use. And we're using that for collaboration space. And it's almost like when we had big meeting spaces when I was growing up, we had like my marketing career, we had things like war rooms. And to me, this Lucid space is like a war room. Like every presentation's there, all of your empathy work is put up there, and it's post-it notes, and it's all it's everything. It's very dynamic, and some people see it as a flat screen. I see it as a very dynamic environment. And in my brain, I'm in a lab even when I'm there, right? And that's
Yeah.
what it's like to work with us. But usually when you start with us, we have to have empathy. We have to be like, what's the state of this culture? What do you have? Don't you have? How are your employees feeling? How are your leaders feeling? And so that's usually where we will give is assessment work or employee engagement survey work or things like that, so that we can start to understand feelings. Then we usually go into some sort of qualitative after that. So we'll go into like groups that will give us the empathy work that we need to start defining problems. So
Wow. So
I
yeah,
know.
that's so and I mean, human centered design, this is something new to me. So I'm learning so much from you
Mm.
just from this piece. So the 5 steps again were empathy,
They're
and
5 actions, so they're expressed as action
right.
words.
Okay.
Empathize,
Empathize.
define,
Define, right? And that's
Ideate.
why ideate. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
So empathize, you're uncovering needs. You're asking people about
yeah.
what is it you need? What do you, when you're onboarding, what is it you need, right? And why do you
Yeah.
need that? And then that's what how you write out a problem statement. Who needs what and why do they need it? Then
Okay.
once you have that, you create what we call HMWs or how might we questions. So let's say in an autumn board,
Sure.
um, a new hire might say, or new hires, if we were doing them focus, they might say, you know what, that's a really, by the way, this is a truth. So if you're listening and you do any kind of hiring or onboarding, a truth is people are still getting offers normally after they've accepted an offer, or they're still being courted, or they're actually like, did I make a good decision? And so to leave them untethered in that 2, 3, 4 week period, we call this pre-start in the onboarding space. And it's a moment of impact. That's a design word. It's a moment where if things turn south, that could be bad. So you have to figure out as a company, how am I tethering to my someone who's accepted an offer, but is now in this space where they could accept another offer and just leave. So
Yeah.
how are you taking care of them? How are you starting their process? And how are you starting to get them ready for day one, which is one of the most important moments of impact when you're going to officially kind of bring them in, welcome them into the culture, on
Right.
their first day. And what are you going to do there? And so we listen to hear like what do people want? What are they feeling? Oh my God, I didn't, I went through that program last year and I didn't feel welcomed at all. My manager didn't even show up on the first day. And imagine
Right.
how people
Yeah.
feel. You know,
Yeah.
our work in the end is about building on our emotional needs, our needs for belonging and our needs for self-worth as human beings. And we believe workplaces, which is again our number one activity where we spend most of our time, like we should be spending it with people that are our people that get us and allow us to be us and that actually make us feel good about ourselves because we're doing good work, we're doing meaningful work, we're doing goal-centered work, right? We're doing it with other people we like to work with. And so it builds our own sense of belonging and self-worth. And it doesn't matter what you do or what you're paid or how you're paid or where you work or what you do. Like you have that human need. And we're just trying to create workplaces that honor those emotional needs because many workplaces do not. They're built to honor physical
I
needs,
would say most don't.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
right. Like this is like, I mean, this is such a, well, I want to say modern way of looking at things. Like so are more highly evolved, let's say. Even though when we're talking about human-centered design, it's based on how we have evolved to be who we
Yeah.
are, right? And it's actually just in alignment with who we are. It's not
Yeah. I
going
was
further out, but it does for if you've never encountered this feels very uh, you know, very innovative, even
Well,
though, yeah,
my husband says, Kevin, you like to say the F word a lot at work. And I always joke, I say, I kind of do like to say that word that we all think when you say the F word. I do say that occasionally. But I like to talk about feelings. And as
yeah,
designers, that's all we talk about. Why do you feel that way? How are you
yeah,
feeling? What are your thoughts?
yeah,
Workplaces, we've been brought up in workplaces that said, don't talk about your feelings, don't show emotion. This was both for men
right,
and women. If
yeah,
men showed emotion, we were weak. If women showed emotion, they were imperfect. Like, it's just not great places. And they're usually lower in emotional intelligence. So, what we're trying to do is create cultures that want to kind of like raise the collective emotional intelligence of the organization because what we're doing there is unleashing their sense of self-worth, their sense of belonging. And what we know about cultures that give us those things is that we work harder, we give them discretionary effort, we recommend them more, we actually do better work for customers, and we're more innovative and creative because we unleash human potential in that, right? And what a wonderful time to be in when I always say that, what you need in order to get hired is knowledge, skills, and behaviors. But I think we're in a time where knowledge and skills are obviously important, but they can be replicated really quickly because there's so much information and ways to kind of grab knowledge and grab and build skills. So if you're driven in a way like knowledge and skills are kind of like at parity, but
yeah,
behaviors. That is what I tell
right,
every professional. You want to set yourself apart. You want to be a
yeah.
leader, a manager. You want to be promoted. Think about how you treat people. Think about how you treat yourself. Think about how you're feeling emotionally fulfilled or not. Think about how you're leading an emotionally intelligent or not organization. Like this is what we have to think about because when we do that, we actually perform better. We perform better. We don't worry about those things.
This, this aligns so much with what I've been saying lately too is with AI with just search
Hmm.
with the idea that knowledge is now cheap because it's at our fingertips, and the ability to then communicate that knowledge, that's what's powerful. And so tapping into our humanness, and like you said, being able to, our behaviors and how we get
Yeah.
along and all of those kind of soft skills around, that, that's where, where what people want to have are around them, right, and in their companies and in their
Yeah.
cultures. So
Yeah.
this is all very fascinating stuff, and I mean, there's a lot there, and I think it's a big adjustment. Like, it makes me think, your company experience. Well, you must be just like, there's no end to the work that you you can
No,
have.
there won't be.
And yeah, and you want to work yourself out of a job, and yet there's just going to be another job and another job, another job, right?
Yeah,
So,
I'm starting to address early careers more, younger people. And I'm also very involved back at University of Illinois, which is my alma mater in the US. And so I've been addressing some of them and we've been talking, and I said, listen, your field of study is important, but your field of study is not your career. It's
mhm,
your field of study. It's knowledge and skills. Okay.
yeah,
When you go out there, you're going to acquire more knowledge, more skills. So every person has the ability to craft a career, to literally think like what are the knowledge and skills I have? What are my unique strengths? What are my values? What is my purpose? Like you have the ability, if you wanted to go through exercises that are not that hard and you can find just through, talking to ChatGPT or Google
yeah,
today. Like, hey, help me find my purpose. Like ChatGPT would give you like a write a 3 hour course to help me find my purpose. And it would literally write the 3 hour course. And then you could just do whatever it told you to do. Like it's pretty
yeah,
amazing how you could do that. But I'm telling young people, like, you're not your field of study and your career is not necessarily your field of study. I'm in the perfect example, an advertising degree. It translated into, my first job out of school was with Disney, and I was in the parks in Orlando, Florida. And I actually worked in attractions and guest relations. But I starting there in that company, I learned about how to create, they literally called them exceptional guest experiences. So I learned from the best right when I was out. I was like, advertising degree. Oh, I'm going to go be an advertiser, which in the 90s was, I'm going to be like a madman. I'm going to go create
yeah,
commercials and I'm going to go buy media. That's what I was going to do. But then I was like, oh, well, I have an advertising degree, but I kind of like this experience thing. And then I started looking, whatever I was looking through at the time, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, brands do things with experiences. They have trade shows and they have, sports sponsorships, and they have all these things like these experiences, these live experiences. And that's for 30 years what I did, or 25 years. That's what I did, was live experiences. I just took all of that live event experience. And when I met a CHRO, she was like, go do that, but do it over here and like do
right,
employee experiences. And
yeah,
she goes, instead of building our consumer brand, build our employer brand. We don't just compete in the customer world. We compete in the world of talent, and we want great talent. We want great talent to find us so that they can do great things for us, right? And we need to set the conditions for that. So help us grow our employer brand, what people say about us as an
right,
employer.
yeah,
And she was the one who was like, I'll segue that marketing to HR career for you. And so here I am. I'm like, I'm applying my knowledge, my skills, my behaviors, but I'm also learning and I'm growing. But see how it just rolls? Like you don't have to stay in the same space doing the
yeah,
same thing over and over. Like you can craft your career. That's what it means,
yeah.
I think, to be on a journey with
For
your
sure, for sure. And yeah, and interesting. And I like how you touched on uh, the employer brand, right?
mm,
You want to be an attractive brand so that people want to be a part of you and apply and all of that. But this idea too of like that internal customer, right? Like
oh
you
yeah,
you are doing marketing for internal customer experience is what it is, right? Like, and it's,
yeah.
if we only, again, we care so much about that customer facing interaction, for a business to generate sales and keep its customers. But on the operations side of things, we need our employees, and we need to put that same amount of focus and energy on their experience at work and making them, yeah, feel
And
valued.
why?
Yeah.
Because are they, don't you think if they're not happy, that's going to show in the way they show up at a trade show? How
Mhm.
they sell or don't sell or
Yeah.
recommend or network or don't network. Like their engagement level matters. And the data's been studied for decades now. Most workers are not engaged. They're
Yeah.
disengaged or actively disengaged. That's like 65% of American workers. I don't know what it is for Canada, but like American workers, it's like 65% disengagement, 35% engagement. Engagement meaning I have a positive emotional relationship with my employer. I'm proud to work there. I recommend it. I give them what's called discretionary effort. I intend to stay. I'm not going to leave. I'm not job hunting.
Right.
That's only a third of workers.
Yeah.
It's
Sad,
crazy to
right?
me. It's
It's
so
like
sad.
foot out the door, most of them, right? Like that's
Yeah.
so before we go, Kevin, tell me about, I think you said something earlier about, the story a company tells
Yeah.
about itself to create the culture.
Yeah.
What role does storytelling play in this, and yeah, how do you look at it, through that lens?
Yeah. Well, the story we call the core, we believe that one of the core feelings, literally a key feeling of belonging, is this feeling of connection. And we think inside work, you get a sense of connection from two things. One, the community in which you've joined. So there's a connection to human beings. Usually, in the ones that you want to feel most connected to normally are the ones you work with every day, right? And so your
Hmm.
relationships and how you treat each other and all that really matter. But the other connection is what we call the core. And it's the core story of that company, which also, if you're looking at it as an individual, is your core story as well. If an organization can have something, that means that an individual can, because they're both human, right? And so whatever true is for individuals can be true for the collective. So every person and the organization should have a purpose. It's the deepest held belief. It is like why we exist. And you can go through a process to uncover that both individually and collectively, your purpose. Normally for organizations, it's the reason, literally, that the founder, however many years ago, even 150, whatever, started the company. Usually it's that. That's usually it. And that has survived. And maybe the what has changed. So one of this CHRO who found me was at a company called NCR, National Cash Register, now
Yeah.
headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. And their purpose was lived by John Patterson when he started the company, 150 years before we actually articulated the purpose. So like it's usually there. The next is I like to call the mission, which I think is what you do and how you do, and who you do it for. So what is it you create? Are you a chocolate manufacturer, or what is it you really do? Like what is it as a company, and who are you doing it for? That's really important. The next thing is vision. That's where you're going to be in the next 1, 2, or 3 years. What's your strategic vision? Like, what's the vision use? What's changing? What will be different in the company? Like, what do you see as, especially you have to get the leadership team at the highest levels to agree on what that vision is. Like, who are we going to be? Who are we going to become? What is it we're doing every day to become? You want to articulate that as clearly as you can. And that's called a vision. Then you have to say, well, if we're here, this is our mission today and how we're living that out. But this is how we want to live that mission out in 3 years. What do we need to prioritize in order to change, to implement, to do whatever, so that we can become that? That's our strategy. Strategy with vision forms strategic vision. Really important. Now, the last thing I always say, the fifth part, is values. And I think they actually sit between purpose and mission and strategy and vision. Because what we've uncovered, or what we believe, is that one, you have to agree on what those norms and behaviors are, but they not only allow you to live your purpose and mission every day, but they actually help you reach for your vision. So if you have a transformational vision, but you don't value things like curiosity, courage, things like that, risk taking, then you likely are going to take much longer to get into that transformation. So how can you start to embed a value? So we actually think of values can be mobile, like they can move a little bit with the strategy of the company in the organization. That's a core story. And when we work with individuals, we're like, why do you work? Why do you exist? What are your values? What is it you do? What are your strengths?
Mhm.
What's unique to you? We say, where's your vision? What's your career vision? Like, where do you want to be in 3, 5, 10 years? And how are you going to get there? What are the steps you're going to start taking? And so I think interviewing is like matching the two cores, the core of the individual and the core of the collective, matching those together and saying, can this be aligned? Right? Can we make
Yeah.
this work? And when you have that perfect alignment, that's when you get perfect levels of engagement.
Wow. Couple of things came out. So give me a second here.
Yeah.
One of them is I wish, and maybe there is a generative AI thing that does this, but I wish I had it running right now that would whiteboard what you're talking about, Kevin. Because I mean, you were using
Oh,
your hands and everything,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
just like I think it would be like this amazing whiteboard that would just be taking shape over the half an hour that we've spent together, and it would be like a master class in
I have
culture and
them.
engagement. Yeah, I bet you.
I
I
have
bet you
core
do.
story boards. I literally have them. I could literally walk you through one, and you're
Well,
giving me ideas now
I
for
know you can. I can see it in your eyes, and you're imagining it, and you're remembering it, and all of that. So that was very cool to watch you in that way. And the other thing I was going to say is, just values. Going back to values, my son is doing a project right now. He's in grade 8. What are his
Mm.
values? And
Oh,
it's like, the fact that they're actually being asked that, I think a lot of people go through life. And if it weren't for a course on neuro linguistic programming, I probably wouldn't have created a
wow.
values hierarchy for myself to help decision making. Right. So it's kind of, it's a good question for us to all ask, to kind of really go back
Well,
to the basics there.
when I tell people, like, it takes a while for people to especially young people, articulating a purpose. Like, they don't have enough life experience to do that, and and it's just weird. It took me. I mean, I articulated my purpose at the age of 38. As a
Sure.
person who was in love with purpose. But I always tell them, go figure out your values, and what I love now is they've actually expanded their offering. Go do Clifton Strengths Finders from Gallup,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they now have one for students and for children, and so they believe that we are born with our strengths. The question is whether or not we're put into places that whatever it is, to allow us to practice our strengths so that they turn into the true talents they're meant to be. And I will tell you that when I discovered my strengths and I aligned what it was I did every day with my strengths and with my values, my career changed. Like, it changed overnight. Like, it was so
Mm.
weird. I started saying, I can't work with you or on this program or this project because, one, that's not what you need. Like, I'm not going to be fulfilled in that project. And so
Yeah.
when I started to align things like that, like, it really does change. You start to resonate differently. I don't know how to explain it, but as having a young person in your life, I
You
would
start
encourage them to do these strengths for kids. I think
Yeah,
it
I was
would be
just gonna say you're
interesting.
gonna start vibrating like Kevin here. Like, you're just like, what happens when you find your values. Kevin, hey, if people want to reach out to you, they're like, I want a little bit of what that guy has. Where can they find you?
Sure. Well, we obviously have a company website. We're getting ready to launch our second, I guess I would call it maybe website 3.0, but currently it's our 2.0 site. But that's our company name, experiencewillow.com. And I also have a kevinfinke.com. We now have our intellectual property around belonging, and I've got some other work I'm doing. And so I'm starting to build my speaking brand and all that kind of
Okay.
thing. So you can also reach us at me at kevinfinke.com. I'd love to even link in with anyone as well. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for spending the time with us. And I know I learned a lot about the human-centered design and just culture. And I'm almost like, I almost need to decompress here a little bit, just to think about some of the stuff, because there's some really good stuff. And I actually urge people to go back and listen again, because I think you probably even pull more out the second time. So thank you so much for
Of
sharing your
course.
expertise with us. Yeah,
Thank
excellent.
you. Thank you. I look forward to the
And
next time.
yeah, for sure. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. And you know what to do. Until next time, stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and stay engaged.